Hello and welcome to another episode of The Verbal Commitment here on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Ryan Wallace, and you have just plugged into the podcast committing to covering high school football recruiting across Kansas and throughout the Kansas City Metro. And that means from Greenbacks to Spoofhounds, Thunderbirds and Firebirds, Roosters, and even Hawklets. We will touch them all in the name of elevating and publicizing our area's growing football talent, whether they're set to become Wildcats, Jayhawks, Tigers, Ichabods, Ravens, Blue Dragons, or perhaps a host of many more. So huddle up. Let's start the show. We've got a good one for you. Third down, you're going to want to stick around for because we've got one of the biggest and most talented offensive tackles in the 2027 class from right here in Kansas City that will be joining us. So you will want to stick around. But before that, we're going to get things started with first down. And real quick, in case you didn't notice, took last week off, back this week with a much different background here. That is because my family is in the process of relocating, not going far, just a new house, but in doing so, things are everywhere. And so, yeah, the show's background might change periodically week to week for the next couple weeks. Eventually, we will get back to a kind of home setup, hopefully something that maybe even looks better than it ever did before. But if you're wondering what the heck is going on here, this looks a little different, looks a little bare. That's why. So stick with us here and hang tight. I promise you it will improve. But that being said, we do not have, because I've already packed it away, the siren. So those of you watching on YouTube get this as the siren. You can just close your eyes, folks that are listening on audio platforms, and pretend that the siren is there. You can see it, you can hear it, because boy, did the Kansas State Wildcats set off a boatload of commitment alarms over the last week and a half. So we will start there in first down. It is a bevy of movement in Manhattan. As you can see there, just in the graphic alone, 6 commitments, but they've actually picked up 2 additional ones for the 2026 class that will join for fall camp coming up that aren't even including in the graphic that you're seeing. But we're sticking forward and moving forward with the 2027 class, which now sits at 11 hard commits in 2027. For 24/7 Sports, that's good for an overall ranking of 21st. And there's still 2 players still left to get their rankings in over there at 24/7. That would be Cameron Cruz and Jack Claiborne. Over at On3 and Rivals, their class sits at 41st with still Jack Claiborne of Northeast Oklahoma, that community college down in Oklahoma that will still need to get a recruiting ranking on him. But boy, just an unbelievable pull for Colin Klein and company. They've been on a heater already this offseason, and credit to Drew Galloway over at On3 for digging up this stat that I'll share with you now, just to give an idea and put things into perspective of what's happening right now in Manhattan. Kansas State, again, via Drew Galloway on X, Kansas State has now landed 11 prospects in the 2027 class before the end of April. And in the 2023 through 2026 classes, K-State had 13 combined commits before the month of May in those respective classes. So you talk about the philosophy shift, you talk about the momentum. It is real right now with Colin Klein. And you think about some of the individuals that they were able to pick up just in the last, again, week to 2 weeks. Ben Heineck was probably the biggest name. He is now the #1 player according to On3 and Rivals in this class. He is a tight end from Stanley, North Dakota. So tapping back into kind of Chris Kleinman's old background, K-State will remain entrenched there thanks to guys like Hank Jacobs and others that have recruited that area. And when you think about Ben Heineck, a tight end that's probably a little different than an Arlie Morrell and a Lincoln Cure in terms of just the physical prowess that he has, a guy that I think is probably more suited right away to line up in line, but still do a lot of different things. This was a kid that had offers from Auburn, Michigan, Utah, among many others, the number 22 tight end nationally, which is at his position the highest among any of the commitments in this class currently for Kansas State. You think about some of the other players that they were able to get new, and I'll say new, we'll get to that in a second. David Rushing, a wide receiver out of South Point Catholic in Arizona, good program that's consistently been pumping out players to the Power 4 level there. Giancamo Sanfilippo out of Bishop Moore Catholic in Orlando, Florida. You saw him in the graphic, played at Winter Park as well. The latest one actually comes from D lineman Anatoni Tahi from Basha, another product of Arizona. So Kansas State still keeping that pipeline open a little bit. And then, as I mentioned, Jack Claiborne of Northeastern Oklahoma A&M and Cameron Cruz from Page, which is kind of outside of Nashville in Franklin, Tennessee. But I mentioned those are the new names. They were also able to get a former decommitment back in the fold, and that was Booker T. Washington's Dwayne Jones out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, D lineman that, Kevin Flaherty and I talked earlier about when he was one of the earlier commits in this class, a guy that can do a lot of different things along the defensive line, somebody that we were excited about seeing. Well, now he's back in the fold. He decommitted, maybe flirted around a little bit, and K-State ends up talking him back into the Wildcats. So I think when you think about Dwayne Jones, when you at a defensive line, at the interior defensive line, you think about Anatoni Tahi, another defensive lineman, positions that are typically universally thought of as kind of tough to evaluate, tough to, get the right guy for. Kansas State now gets two of those interior linemen that, again, at that size don't just grow on trees, especially in this area, out of the way. I mean, those guys are in the fold now. So I think that's great for Kansas State. But I wanted to take a minute too to touch on one player in particular, and that's Cam Cruz, the quarterback. And obviously, that's going to make a lot of noise as Colin Klein's first quarterback commitment as the head coach of Kansas State. But it's a cool backstory too. Cam Cruz ends up going to play at Page by way of Olathe West. So this is I don't want to call him a native Kansan. I don't think he was born in Kansas, if I'm not mistaken, but played several years for Olathe West. And we saw the run that the Owls went on this last year. So you can only imagine if that team had Cam Cruz at quarterback, not just last year, but this coming year too, the talent that they would have been able to stockpile. Maybe it goes all the way to state championship. Who knows? He did lead Page to a state championship in Tennessee this last fall. Really accomplished quarterback. I think a guy that was getting more recruiting attention than even he probably showed on social media. And that's coming. I say that as someone that earned a Miami offer from the University of Miami. So Cam Cruz, I think he's a blend of kind of Skylar Thompson meets Ryan Willis. If we can combine a Wildcat and a Jayhawk as two former Kansas City guys and mold them into a player, I think athletically he can do some things on his feet that might surprise you as a rusher. But then as a passer, I think, Ryan Willis had that accuracy, had a really nice arm, good form, technically sound. So those are kind of the two that I would mold Cameron Cruz into. And so just, again, a really neat coming home story. Cam Cruz coming back home to Kansas, where he's got a lot of friendships. And before we segue into the next part of First Down, I do want to finish. It might be Cam Cruz's coming home early party, because a lot of sourcing out there, a lot of rumors starting to buzz about the possibility of Cam Cruz now being a Kansas State commitment, possibly finishing his high school career back in the Sunflower State or just across the state line in KC-Mo. I've heard Liberty North be thrown out there a little bit. Base or Linwood, another popular one if he wants to stay on the Kansas side, that has been linked right now to Cam Cruz. His sister is a student at Base or Linwood, so that would make some sense if he wants to stay back on the Kansas side. But again, something that maybe will be an ongoing story here for us at Verbal Commitment. Will Cam Cruz come home, or will he finish his senior year in Tennessee before returning to Manhattan as a member of this 2027 signing class? A lot of things to iron out still, but again, wanted to touch big time on the movement happening in Manhattan, because it is real and they are on a hot streak right now for the purple and white. Segueing into the next part of First Down, speaking of recruiting and rankings, 24/7 Sports came out and revealed kind of their initial full-on 2027 cycle of what they look at, or in the 2028 class, their first kind of full-blown top 247, and it features 3 Kansans. The biggest of which is Jackson Parker from Olathe North, coming in with just a massive surge all the way up to number 42 overall. So a top 50 player from right here in the Kansas City Metro over at Olathe North. Jackson Parker, the number 3 safety in the country, and the number 1 player in the state of Kansas. But I leave a question mark next to that. because, again, we talk about rumors, a lot of rumors swirling that Jackson Parker likely to finish out his high school career. He's got 2 seasons left in California. Dad's from California, played college ball at USC. So word on the street is Jackson Parker might be headed that way for his junior and senior season. So he's number 1 in Kansas for now with an asterisk. Behind him, though, at number 132 overall, Cannon Zubek, big tackle from Shawnee Mission East. He's the number 15 rated tackle in the country, top 3 rated tackle if you look at just the Midland region. And then down at number 236 overall, I say down, I mean, he's the number 236 player in the country. So I wouldn't take that, as a knock on Baron Marshall. Folks that have been tuning into this show for a long time know what we think of Baron Marshall, the number 34 receiver nationally and a top 10 receiver in the Midlands region. He comes in at number 3 in Kansas. Rounding out the folks that weren't in the top 247, but are still nationally ranked at their position and rounding out the state of Kansas right now, Reese Wilmus, who is a recent interview that we had here on the show. Go back and check out that episode. It was really fun to talk with Reese, younger brother of Braden Wilmus, who's out at Clemson. He's the number 27 tackle currently in the nation for 2028, number 4 in the state of Kansas. Jalen Johnson, Bishop Miege, defensive end, comes in as the number 43 edge, number 5 in the state of Kansas, and Remington Merlot at Rose Hill, number 49 edge and the number 6 player in the state of Kansas. Over on the Missouri side, Zaire Thomas fell out of 24/7's top 247, but he remains a top 25 defensive lineman and comes in at number 5 in the state of Missouri, number 1, according to 24/7 Sports, among the Kansas City, Missouri prospects. So again, we've talked about how maybe 2027 is a place that you want to stake your flag on the Kansas City Mo side in terms of that top tier talent. But I think the things will shift in 2028, and you will come back and see Kansas, as we're already seeing with 24/7 Sports, have more of the top line talent on the Kansas side, particularly here in the Metro, with or without Jackson Parker. And then on the Missouri side, I think 24/7 will come around. There's still some really, really good, strong names that I think have a chance to really make themselves known on a national level. Brock Barrows over at Lee Summit West, really, really talented interior lineman, and Jacob Indum come to mind, another talented edge with so much size at Lee Summit North. So think about those 2 guys. And I use Brock Barrows as a segue into another part of First Down here, and that is the Lee Summit West Titans have a new coach. Coach Horn and company are out, or at least Coach Horn and 2 other assistants were announced that they will not be coming back for this upcoming fall season because of some interesting things that were uncovered in terms of transfers and maybe some forgery in terms of guys that were not supposed to be playing for Lee Summit West that were playing for Lee Summit West. So there is a regime change in the works over there at Lee Summit West. And again, this is news not just because of kind of how it all unfolded and those details, but for me and for folks into this show from a recruiting perspective, this is a very talented roster. I think that you think about Harrison Perkins as a guy that's starting to come up, but the 2 guys that you see on your screen there, for those of you watching on YouTube, Brock Barrows on the right, Chris Harris Jr. on the left, 2 guys that right now have all the makings to be Power 4 level players, will soon have a new head coach. So what does that mean for recruiting? Obviously, I think you're not going to see any shortage of coaches coming through there, but who is the head coach that will be manning and helping guide some of those kids through the recruitment, and maybe who will be helping spotlight more of those Lee Summit West Titans in the future? That is a question that we will soon have an answer for. And last but not least, in First Down, I wanted to kind of start a new segment here with our Spotlight Offer of the Week. And these are scholarship offers that we are detecting on X or on Twitter that I think are worthy of talking about. I think that are very newsworthy and noteworthy. And this week, we actually have 2 that I wanted to spotlight and single out and talk about. The first comes from the Power 4 level, and it's on the left side there. It's Elijah Shaw finally getting an in-state offer from Kansas State. And again, Elijah Shaw, a player that we've talked about before on the show from Blue Valley North, 6'8" offensive tackle that is the younger brother of Aiden Shaw, the former highly regarded basketball prospect that spent some time at Missouri. who's now at Boston College. This is his younger brother over at Blue Valley North. And again, I mentioned a player that maybe we're here at Verbal Commitment not as high on as some other folks have been, still kind of a project, very raw. But this is, as I'm told, a committable offer as it stands right now from Kansas State. And so this is big news because Elijah Shaw had offers from Iowa State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Boston College, among others, but had not yet garnered an in-state offer from KU or K-State. I mentioned no Missouri there either. Now K-State gets involved. Is this a domino now for Elijah Shaw and for some of those other in-state schools to get in the mix with this massive offensive tackle from Blue Valley North? Again, 6'8", 280 pounds. And then on the right, Maddie Brittingham, a very, very popular name for those that are loyal to this show. We're very, very high on the Free State athlete, a guy that Reese Wilmus spoke very, very highly of on this show when he was our interview a couple episodes back, that we've been talking about for well over a year now. A player that can play receiver, he can play running back, he does some things in the return game. He's a hellacious safety. I love the way he comes downhill, just burning, just with, with his hair on fire, helmet on fire. And he gets an offer from Army. And Army was in, I believe they offered Jacob Lockett as well. They've been kind of testing the market, around Kansas City too. Rhett Daniels, I mentioned on a previous episode, has now committed to Army. So a Blue Valley North player that's headed out to West Point. So you think about what Army could be for Maddie Brittingham, and another one of these kind of potentially domino offers. Now the FBS is on the board for Maddie Brittingham. Air Force also offered, but I thought the Army one was really intriguing. Again, Rhett Daniels already in the Metro. Does he help Army and the Black Knights kind of recruit a Maddie Brittingham? And again, they've had some players from the Kansas City Metro before that have gone out there and been really good fits, I think, for that scheme. And Briggs Bartosh comes to mind. And I think Maddie Brittingham might fit in that same mold as a player that I really like that offer from Army. I think he could fit at Army, but I also think that might be kind of a domino offer to watch as the FBS is finally on the board for Maddie Brittingham. With that, we will move in real quickly to second down because, again, I teased it. We've got a really good interview ahead, so stay tuned for that. I'll tell you more about that after we hit our prospect profile of the week, which comes to us from Bishop Miege, and it is Jaden McDaniel this week's, folks. The Bishop Miege Stag, coached by John Holmes over there, 6'1", 195-pound wide receiver. He was a first-team All-EKL selection last season and a first-team All-State selection at the 4A level. Also an honorable mention, All-EKL hoops standout player for the Stag. So he can do a little bit of everything as a multi-sport athlete. I mentioned it, though, on the gridiron, 53 catches for 781 yards, almost 15 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. And when you roll the film of Jaden McDaniel, what you're going to see is a player that I personally love his routes. I think specifically his footwork at the line of scrimmage, he can really sell it against defensive backs. You see the size and the length to win contested catches, goes up and snatches that right out of the air. But then this duality of moving the chains while also being able to take the top off. You see the change of direction there. Again, he sells the routes really well, and you see constantly defensive backs that have to sag on the route because maybe he beats them long, there he is, and then he still can create and turn 10 yards into 15 or 20 yards while also still being able to take the top off. So again, that duality of moving the chains, taking the top off, and while also being a difference maker on special teams. I talked to Coach John Holmes about Jaden McDaniel over the past week, and I said, he reminds me a little bit of like a Philip Wesley clone that they had that ended up going out to San Diego State. And I think since has gone and transferred over to the East Coast as well. Maybe Delaware State, I think, is where Philip Wesley ended up. But, Coach Holmes said, I like that comp, but I think he might be even bigger and stronger than Wesley was. He's, quote, the real deal, if you ask Coach John Holmes, at a position that, mind you, has had great tradition at Bishop Miege. So when you hear Coach Holmes say he's the real deal, this is coming from a coach that has had guys like Isaiah Coppage, which is another really good comp, I think, for Jaden McDaniel, Daniel Jackson, Jafar Armstrong, Trey Parmalee, Justin McKay, all of those guys have come through the halls of Bishop Miege and John Holmes has seen just about all of them. And he's saying that here's Jaden McDaniels. This kid is the real deal. Missouri Western has offered, and just this week we now have his first Division I offer from Drake as of Tuesday when we record this. Could we see more coming for Jaden McDaniel? I sure hope so. I sure think so, because I think he is being very, very slept on as a fully complete receiver in the Sunflower State for 2027. And with that, we will roll into our first commercial break, but stay tuned because, as I said, there he is on the other side, Lee Summit's own Big Willie style. Big Will Seiler joins us next for our one-on-one interview after this.
My name is Terrell Jolly. A lot of people call me TJ, founder and CEO of Integrity Capital Management. So Integrity Capital Management originally started out as a property management firm, but we slowly transitioned to what is described as an incremental development firm that's focused on situational housing. I know most people say affordable, but we believe in creating housing for people that are actually in need and built to the end user. I believe everyone needs a home because when you have home, you have hope. The reality is that when you're building a business, one thing you don't think about is like what a true banking relationship means. And, I had the honor and privilege of meeting Debbie early on in my career when I was just trying to get going. And as a small business, it's really challenging at times because people don't understand the concept or not believe the longevity because you're just getting started. But Debbie was willing to take a chance on me, be patient with me. I almost look at it like a grassroots initiative. She's seen and believe what I'm about. Anybody that's really true about their business and want to get some things done, I would definitely trust hands down Emprise, because Deb's team, along with Aaron and Jackie and all the amazing people that work behind the scenes, even from the treasury side, I would say, hey, give them an opportunity, because you won't be disappointed and you will actually be in hands that actually somebody care and that will see you from start to finish.
Thanks for sticking around here on the Kansas City Sports Network and the Verbal Commitment Podcast. And I am pleased to be joined this week by Lee Summit offensive lineman Will Seiler. Will, the school year is winding down, but that means camp season and combine season is in full swing for you. Are you pumped?
Oh, I'm super excited. I'm ready to go.
Well, let's start kind of a little bit with a blast from the past in a good way, and you don't have to go that far back. I'm talking about last fall, that state championship ring. I saw the design. What did you guys think about kind of having that 0-4 engraved kind of on one side and then being able to flip it over and knowing how that team was able to rebound to a state title?
It was super monumental. It was really nice to see the ups and downs of the season and really see how special that season was for us. I mean, starting out 0-4 is not ideal for any team, and then just being able to bounce back and not lose a game and end up winning the state championship, that's something that it's unheard of. And it was really special. And I mean, I know me and my teammates were just super proud of what we did and super excited to go out and perform again this year.
How fun was it for you as an offensive lineman to block for the Hatfields? Not just this last year, but for multiple years. That had to just be a real treat, knowing, man, if I can just do my job, they might take one to the house.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always knew that if we got the ball in their hands, something was going to happen, and all I needed to do was get a few guys down the field to get out of the way for them. So, I mean, just knowing that I need to do my job and that they'll be doing their job behind me is just it's just teamwork at its finest. I mean, if I do my stuff, they'll do theirs. Good things will happen. We'll win games.
Really talented senior class that's leaving, but for guys like you and Drew, so many others on this Tigers team that are returning, what do you feel like maybe you and this coming senior class learned from the guys that will played their last snap at the state championship game?
I don't know. The biggest thing I would say, and I know Coach Miller mentioned this quite a bit this last season, was as long as we play harder longer, we'll outbeat teams just with how physical and tough we are. I mean, we'll be stepping up as senior leaders this year, making sure that everyone's. I mean, we got workouts every day after school, lifting, running, just getting prepared. Super excited for what we're going to be able to do this year, just based off of what we're doing right now in the off season. Uh, I mean, just getting out there, working hard. it's gonna be something special. I can just tell.
Now, I go back to last season again, and I was at the Liberty North game and talking to Chris Gomez, one of our favorites here on the show, and we had mentioned, this was our first time being able to see Will Seiler and a bunch of other players there, and uh, Coach Gomez was very high on you that night, and we quickly saw why as well, watching you in person. Was there a moment though for you that you kind of knew, man, I might be able to make something of this football game. I might be able to make this into, a college career, potentially a pro career. Because again, it's one thing for, guys like myself, guys like Coach Gomez to say there's something about this kid. I think it's something different though when you start to feel it. When did you feel that football could be in your career path?
Well, it's always been my dream since I was a little kid to go play college football. So I've always worked my tail off to get there. And now that it's kind of happened, I'm getting offers. I mean, it's great. I would definitely say um probably this summer I started feeling that. Just I was going to camps, performing well, getting pulled aside by coaches, having conversations, getting pulled to go against other athletes at camps so they could see me go against different competition. It was just I could tell that I belonged, and that was, I think, the biggest part is just knowing that I can do this, I can be here, and I think it was just a confidence boost going, from the summer and doing well at these camps to the season, and just knowing that if I give my 100%, then I'm gonna make something happen, team's gonna make something happen, I mean, it'll go from there.
Now, I love to ask Lyman this. Have you always been big Will Seiler, or was there kind of a growth spurt somewhere involved, or have you always been the big guy?
Well, I've always been the tall guy. But I used to be skin and bones in elementary school. I would say about 5th grade, I started getting a little bigger, and then from there, I just started playing some offensive line, and I loved it. Uh, Little league football. My dad was he was my coach in we played for LSFA, KCYFL. So he was always telling me that, you're gonna be a big kid. You need to be doing offensive line. So I mean, just learning it at a young age to help. But I mean, I've always been the tallest, not always the biggest, but I mean, I've definitely outgrown quite a few of my teammates.
I think when I saw you in the fall, you were what, maybe 6'6", 290, maybe playing at 285 during the season or whatever. But where would you say you're at right now, and what's kind of your goal to be playing at, say your senior season?
Right now I'm at same height, but I'm around 305. So I'm thinking play right at there. I'm just trying to make some of this bad weight go to good weight, working real hard in the weight room, all that, just trying to really get some more muscle on my body.
I was going to say, what is kind of right now? I mentioned it. You're kind of getting into that camp swing. What has been your biggest piece of focus this off season to prepare yourself for kind of the month to come?
Definitely pass setting. As I know, we ran the ball quite a bit this last season. So definitely getting that pass game under control and knowing my footwork, knowing what to do, just getting in the groove of things again so I can get ready and perform at these camps is definitely my biggest focus at the moment.
Joined here on the verbal commitment by our number 5 player in KC Mo for 2027. That's Will Seiler. Again, you heard all 6'6" of him. Really talented offensive lineman and a budding recruit. So let's get into kind of what the other part of the show is all about, and that is recruiting. You've got a couple official visits already scheduled, Lindenwood and Tulsa. Maybe tell the fans and the listeners out there about what has stood out about those two programs so far that said, I want to go ahead and lock in a visit there.
Definitely the coaches. I felt a real connection talking with them. I visited both those places already. Just knowing that they're there to help develop me and get me to where I need to be is definitely a big motivator for me to want to go see those places again and have them into consideration with my later decision with committing somewhere. I'm still looking for some more offers. I'm going to some camps this year, but those were two I definitely wanted to lock in just to have another time with the coaches, get to see campus a little more, just kind of be around the program.
You mentioned some other camp trips that you're planning on taking. Can you kind of walk us through maybe what your calendar looks like so far? Maybe some camps that you already have penciled in?
I wouldn't say anything's finalized yet, but I'm definitely thinking Minnesota, K-State, Oklahoma State, probably KU, and then I believe some mega camps that I would like to go to.
Well, we're a local show, Will, and obviously you mentioned both the Jayhawks and the Wildcats in there. So far, based on kind of what your interactions have been like with those two staffs, what are kind of some things that you're hearing from KU and K State, and what are some things that you like from what you've heard so far?
Um, well, I know K-State's very interested. I think I'm pretty close to getting an offer from them, so that's very exciting. Uh, I'm just ready to prove myself to those programs and just hopefully get an offer from them.
Now you mentioned, Tulsa and Lindenwood being two schools that you're already gonna take visits to. Um, is there a priority maybe to stay closer to home, or is it just happening right now that, those 2 schools happen to be fairly close to home? Or are you comfortable going maybe a little bit further, but that opportunity just hasn't presented itself yet?
I think it's a mix of both. I haven't really had that opportunity quite yet. Everything I've gotten so far, besides the Ivy Leagues that I've received, are pretty fairly close to home. I think ideally I would rather stay closer to home if I can, but I understand the a decision. It'll be a part of my decision, but it's not higher ranked than some other factors of making a decision like that.
Well, you just segued perfectly into what I was gonna ask you next, and that is, what are those factors? You mentioned Ivy League, so maybe the academic side, and, again, I'm curious kind of besides football, what else are you really looking forward to, in terms of your evaluation of all these different programs and universities?
Yeah, I just think it needs to be a really good fit for me. Not only just on the football side, but I want to be able to take the courses I want to take. I'm thinking study engineering, which I know for some schools that's a bit of a stretch just because of how time consuming that major can be. So I want to be able to take what I want to do for a career. Um, I mean, education's big. I understand that football's going to end someday, and that you need to have a backup plan and be educated to have a job.
Tell me more about engineering and maybe the specific path of engineering that you're looking to take. I'm fascinated by kind of that career choice for you.
I would say right now it's pretty broad. I just really like the engineering aspect of things. I enjoy math, I enjoy science. My dad's an engineer, my brother's studying engineering at Iowa State right now, and it's just kind of always been in the family. So I just it's always caught my brain a little bit.
What would it be like if you had an opportunity to suit up at Iowa State or go against Big Brother at maybe one of these other kind of regional rivals? How would the family handle that?
Well, my brother's just a student, but he would definitely he told me he would root for whatever team I'm on. He would root for the Cyclones, but wherever Will's at, that's number 1.
So he'll be that guy in the student section, right? If Iowa State were to play KU or K State, he'll be the guy in the student section wearing your colors. How cool is that? Um,
That's
well,
awesome.
I wanted to ask you something else here. You had an opportunity, and I'm curious kind of how this connection happened to go train recently with Vince Vance, renowned trainer. Tell us a little bit about kind of how that connection came to be and your workouts with Coach Vance.
Yeah, so, I have an uncle that, recently moved down to Georgia. He lives in Roswell, suburb of Atlanta, so he's going to be coaching with Coach Vince Vance, for a high school team down there, and they're pretty close, so he shared my film with Vince, and, Vince wanted me to come down and work with him a little bit, get better on some pass setting, and just focus on the stuff before camp season.
Pretty cool though to be able to have kind of Coach Gomez close to home, and then yeah, when you go visit family, you've got somebody else and kind of take the best of all worlds. I think that's really neat. Um, okay, so let's get down to brass tacks then. If you had it your way, and I know that there are still variables out there, maybe there's some teams that haven't offered yet, that might. but in a perfect scenario, kind of what would your timeline look like in terms of having recruiting done final?
Well, I'm going on some camps, gonna go on some official visits this summer, but ideally, I'm thinking about maybe committing July.
Okay. Okay. What would it take for you to commit in July? I mean, what kind of things on your checklist would you have to have checked? I mean, I ask that because I'm curious. Like, are you the type that if a K State or a Minnesota or somebody offers, are you the type that might go ahead and commit like while you're there at camp, or is this something that you're still going to want to come home and kind of do your due diligence on?
It'll definitely be something I come home, talk with about my parents. We're gonna when I get closer to that date, when I want to commit, we're gonna probably pick a top 3, something like that, and really go in depth, research, look at everything, see how well it fits me, my path, take coaches into consideration, playing time, see how early I could play. Um, Distance, I mean, I would be willing to go far, but ideally stay closer to home, and then just really see if it's a good fit for me.
For sure. Um, I'm curious too, when coaches are starting to talk to you about how they see you fitting in their scheme, and maybe it depends on the scheme. Where do most of them project you? Obviously, you're a tackle for the Tigers at the high school level. Do everybody see you at tackle, maybe left or right side, or have some expressed some interest of you as a guard?
So yeah, most schools have told me I'm or tackle. I've got the athleticism, the strength, the size to play tackle. But other schools, more bigger schools, have been saying some more things like maybe start at tackle and then see where what happens and maybe move you inside. I've even been told from Oklahoma State they want to see me practice some snapping and maybe try out center a little bit.
Very cool. Very cool. Is that something that you've been working on, or will that be new at camp?
No, I well, it's been a while, but I used to snap when I was younger in little league football, but I've been practicing, getting ready for that.
Awesome. Well, let's get you out of here with a couple fun ones here. First off, here's something that I'm always curious about. Again, I've seen you play against Liberty North. Obviously, I know about, the history with you guys in Lee Summit North, but then you've got Lee Summit West in there. Like, who is Lee Summit's real rival? I mean, what's the game that everybody at school, maybe not just the football team, but regardless of the sport, that the school gets the most amped about?
I would definitely say Lee Summit North. It's just been there was a stretch there for a while where we couldn't beat North in very many things. They were just whooping our tail a lot. So it's there's definitely some bitterness there, and we just anything we want to beat North.
What's kind of the post-game spot after a Lee Summit victory? Like, is it just going over to somebody's house? Or is there kind of like a restaurant in town that everybody goes and gets some grub at? And again, maybe if it's somebody's house, like, are you guys ordering pizzas, or are you just hanging out? Like, what's kind of the atmosphere like? And as a lineman, I'm always curious, like, how are you refueling the body after a big win?
Yeah, we like going to Johnny's Tavern just down the street from our high school. It's a good spot. They got pizza, chicken, burgers. I like getting their mac and cheese and then putting up cut up chicken tenders in there. It's super
Yes,
good. And then a
absolutely.
lot of the time we'll go over to a teammate's house and just hang out, uh, talk about the game, just relax a little bit.
Who's the one coach at Lee Summit that you would not want to be on their bad side?
Uh, I would say there's 2. Probably my position coach, Coach Oliver, and then definitely Coach Miller. Which Coach Miller helps out with the O-line quite a bit at practice, so if you get on either one of their bad sides, you're not gonna have a good day.
That's funny because Coach Miller always seems very approachable for guys like me. But again, I'm not a lineman up there, put with the game on the line. Last but not least, a fun one that we always like to ask around here is, if there's a player that you feel like at Least Summit, maybe it's a fellow 2027 like yourself, maybe it's a 28 or 29. Is there somebody that fans and people like myself need to have on our radars that maybe isn't getting enough attention just yet, but should be?
Yeah, I think definitely Max Trio is gonna have a big season this year. I know he's had a bit of recognition, but I think more is deserved. He's got great hands. He's just an all-around athlete that I think is really gonna step up this year.
Big fan of Max, and you're absolutely dead on with him being a name that I think as soon as this fall, if you're not on him by this summer, definitely this fall, I think there's a breakout season coming. So good choice there, Will.
Absolutely.
We agree with you here at KCSN. Thank you for stopping by.
Well, thank you for having me.
And folks, stay tuned. Fourth Down is just around the corner. We will be right back.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment. Thanks to Will Seiler and the Lee Summit Tigers for participating in this show and giving us some time to chat about not only his own individual recruitment, but also the big things ahead as Lee Summit goes on their title defense in 2026. And we finished the show with Fourth Down and a very, again, important topic that has made waves over the last week or so in the state of Kansas, and that is with the fully sanctioned, it is officially approved from KSHA. Flag football is coming to the state of Kansas. As I mentioned, the board of directors met last Thursday, a week ago, and they gave it the green light. It has been fully approved. It is now a KSHA sanctioned activity beginning in the 2026-2027 school year. Girls flag football coming to the state of Kansas. It's the 18th state that now has sanctioned flag football. You can play up to 10 regular season games, and there will be a state tournament. You have to have at least 24 schools in order to compete for a state championship. But we're looking at Kansas. They've already had, maybe it's unbeknownst to many of you, it was unbeknownst to me until I started digging on this, already had 28 club teams. And Aquinas was actually one of the first to have a club team in the state of Kansas. And so I think you're going to see more and more. You're going to have those 28 that are existing and more that are going to pop up. Last fall, Mill Valley won a bracket that was kind of a statewide bracket of teams. Free State I read an article that Free State's expecting to close close to 50 girls for this upcoming season. They had 30 on their club team last year. So this is big. And I wanted to touch on this very quickly and again, shine some light on just what this means. I think from a national perspective, you think about a state like Florida, they have 350 plus schools now with girls flag football, and it's been going in the Sunshine State for a while. But there's other states like Georgia and Nevada that have shown enormous growth very quickly for a sport that, again, is about to take off, not just because of states that are starting to sanction this, but remember, the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles will feature this sport for the very first time, both men's and women's. And I think you're going to see a big surge. That's why you're seeing the NFL get involved here. From a collegiate level, the NAIA was actually the first to sanction competition with flag football beginning in 2021. And since then, the NCAA has declared it kind of an emerging sport. So you have to have 40 schools at the varsity level to compete for championships. They're not quite there yet, but again, they're classifying it as an emerging sport. But you think about from some of the digging that I did, Alabama State at the forefront, they're offering girls scholarships for flag football. Nebraska recently became the first Power Four to make a varsity level team that they announced will begin in 2028. And recruiting for Nebraska flag football is already underway. Missouri Southern is going to elevate their team to a varsity status by 2027. And even closer to home, the Heart of America Athletic Conference will welcome this as a championship sport in 2027 as well. Baker University, one of 6 initial teams slated to compete. And then you think about Bethel, Kansas Wesleyan, and Ottawa that all compete in the KCAC. Ottawa has won 5 straight titles. This is nothing new in some kind of areas of our state and areas of our region. Flag football is a real thing. Fort Scott Community College, I forgot to mention, has a team that's already taken action and is starting to put the gears in motion to recruiting and putting their roster together. So again, I think this is a major news. And one other thing that I wanted to touch on real quick before we get out of here and why this is, I think, big in the state of Kansas and for girls of all ages at the high school level is this is a no-cut sport. And that is immensely appealing, an immensely appealing piece of why this was so unanimously voted towards by Keisha and the board of directors, and why it has such strong backing from, again, not just the NFL, but people in those director seats and just fans and parents of girls and the girls themselves. I think the big questions will be where do they play, and when do they play? We know it's going to be a fall sport, but 80-yard long fields and 40-yard wide fields. So it's a little different than your typical football field. Obviously, they could still play it on a football field, but with varsity sports and JV sports, obviously football is going to take a lot of time up in the fall. So do they share time with football? I think it would be awesome. Just like you go to a girls' varsity basketball game, maybe on a Friday night, and then directly after that is the doubleheader with the boys' varsity basketball. How cool would it be to go out and watch, girls' flag football right before the boys' varsity football team takes on a Friday night? I don't know the logistics. It's probably slim to none, but that would be really cool. Again, the perk, though, is that even if you can't be on a football field, with it being a little bit different dimensions, maybe they can have it and not interfere with a lot of other schedules. The only other question will be, it's played in the fall, so does it share space and does it compete at all with volleyball? But again, I think because it is a no-cut sport, you're going to see a lot of girls that don't go out for volleyball or are cut from volleyball now have a chance to still be competitive, still be active in an athletic participation in the fall. And so this is just, again, an enormous thing for girls in the state of Kansas. Certainly hope that Missouri and others tag in here and get involved as well. Flag football is going to be a great thing for the state and for girls in the future. I was out at a 7-on-7 tournament not too long ago, and the level of competition and how awesome it was to watch those girls compete was really fun. And again, I just think that we are just the tip of the iceberg on what could be happening with girls flag football. There are going to be names that will be household names. And by God, we're probably going to be talking about them on future episodes of Verbal Commitment when we talk about girls flag football recruiting and kind of who's going to get that next star and where they're going. And we're going to have the ladies on here and talk about it all. So I think, again, this is just the beginning of what is about to take off as a surging sport nationally, especially here in Kansas, with that approval from the board of directors. And so with that, again, want to thank Will Seiler. Want to thank you all for tuning in, all the coaches, the players, parents, and fans. Thanks for tuning in week after week, even when we take a week off, to come back and share your support. And until next time, we will see you on the trail, and take care.